Hello and welcome to this session, our fourth and final session, You've Been Admitted, Now What? I'm Michelle Weinberg, Executive Editor for the International Jurist. Joining this discussion is, let me bring them on stage here. There we go. Joining this discussion with me today is Liz Woyczynski, Director of Admissions and Student Services, Global Legal Studies for the LL.M and SJD at Case Western Reserve University School of Law, and Pamela Beech, Director of Graduate Programs in the Graduate International Compliance and Legal Studies at Widener University, Delaware Law School. Thank you both for joining this fourth session today. So if you guys attended all of the previous three sessions, you heard about what makes a great LL.M program and what kind of program should you choose, as well as other admissions advice. This session, we plan on covering from accepting the offer to then registering for courses, and then some other things in between that are typical questions that both Liz and Pamela often say that they're asked about from applicants. The theme here is to make sure that you have the information you need to know the LL.M program you want to belong to, which has been said in the previous three sessions this morning. So, okay, so let's about first accepting the offer. Pamela, what can students expect to find in an acceptance letter or letters, and what follows as far as steps to making a decision?
Sure, yes. So in the acceptance letter, the students are going to expect to find what semester they've been accepted for. So if they've applied to start, depending on the university and when they accept enrollment, in either whether they have enrolling admission, which would be perhaps January, May, or August, depending on those semesters, their acceptance letter will state which semester they've been accepted into, which program they've been accepted into to confirm that, and then any specific deadlines for when they would need to respond to this offer for acceptance. And many schools will ask for a response form from a student so that they can secure their seat in the program. Schools sometimes will have a limited capacity on how many students they're going to accept into a program. And so a student may be asked to provide a seat deposit. That way they can secure their space in the program. The good thing about the seat deposit is once that's paid, that does, at least at Delaware Law School, gets later credited towards the student's tuition. So it's not a lost amount of money. It will go towards their account once they have matriculated and started the program and been in their classes. Some other information that they'll see in their acceptance letter is, at least for us anyway, we link the students to a checklist that we have on our website that will really actually go through a lot of what we're covering in this session today, from how to start their Delaware Law School email account, what other accounts are they going to receive. Will they have a Zoom account? They'll have what we call their My Widener, which is their student portal, and they will have access to their student accounts and their tuition in there, their course schedule, which we'll talk about in a minute, and everything that they need to get started through that checklist. It even goes into visa information, which we'll talk about, and visa wait times, and orientation, when is orientation, and all of the details that we're going to be covering today. I won't go into all of them now since we're going to cover them individually. We also provide information in our acceptance letter for campus housing. So if at Delaware Law School, we have dorms right on campus, so we'll provide information for students who may want to reserve a dorm on campus. And then we'll have, a deadline for when that student should respond to the acceptance for the offer. That way we can plan appropriately for when they might want to arrive in the United States. Let me just see.
Do you talk about scholarships in the admit letter at all, or?
We don't have the scholarships mentioned in the admit letter, but they're in the checklist that we send the students to.
Good.
And we do offer scholarships for international students. We have an International Leaders Scholarship. That way, the students can apply for that and assist them with some of the cost of tuition, which we know can be much more expensive in the United States than in many other countries.
Liz, did you have any additional follow-up?
No, I think we proceed in a very similar way, providing students with information about admission, possible scholarships, and information about how to proceed with enrollment as soon as they get their admit letter. Yeah.
All right, so then let's get into the process for sitting for the bar. Liz, when should this really begin, this process?
Right. So I assume that we're talking to students who might be interested in enrolling for fall 2024, maybe even spring 2025. But generally, a good time to start qualifying to take a U.S. bar exam would be as soon as you're admitted and as soon as you've decided to enroll in an LL.M program. So the most popular bar exam in the United States for LL.Ms, no matter where they go to get their LL.M degree, is the state of New York. New York was one of the first states to open itself up to international students taking the bar exam. And yeah, and of course, just with all the business and everything in New York City, that's a very popular place. So so the New York bar requires that you have an undergraduate degree in law, and then it requires that you add to that a U.S. LL.M degree. I won't go into all the different iterations of that, but that's pretty much what you have to have. And if you're interested in a U.S. bar exam, you need to talk to your advisor right when you're ready to sign up for classes, so that you sign up for the right classes, because that's part of qualifying for the New York bar exam that requires certain kinds of classes to be completed during your U.S. LL.M degree. So at this point, before you enroll, you just need to go into your browser and type New York bar for foreign legal credentials or international credentials. And it'll come right up. It's a menu on the left-hand side. And all the information that you need is there. You scroll to the bottom of that website and you'll see the application to apply to have your credentials considered. So after reading all the instructions very carefully, which I'll summarize very quickly, you go online and you establish a BOLE ID, B-O-L-E, and you get an NCBE ID as well. And yeah, that creates your online account, which will serve you all the way up until the time that you take the New York bar exam. And then the New York bar asks that you send original transcripts, and that you send perhaps an original diploma, especially if the transcript doesn't have that you graduated and the date that you graduated. You need to send that graduation certificate diploma, also an original copy. And then also most students need to provide a letter that just says that either you are already admitted to the practice of law in your country, or that the education that you've completed, your undergraduate law degree, is what would qualify you to practice law in your own country. So all of those things need to be mailed. None of that can be uploaded, and all of it has to be original. And sometimes that's not easy because sometimes in other schools, other countries, sometimes it's hard to get multiple copies. But you'll have to work with your law school to do that. And there are deadlines. And the deadlines are surprisingly early. And that's why we're talking about it now. So the deadline to be considered for a July bar exam, the bar exams are offered February and July. So ideally, if you did start in fall 2024, you'd finish a 2-semester LL.M, and you might want to sit for the bar exam in July. So you need to get your credentials in by October 1st. And that's a hard deadline. If you want to sit for a February bar exam, you have to get your credentials in by May 1st. And so the deal with the deadline is that they'll try to, they process people's applications in the order in which they're completed. And they tell you right up front, right on the website that I referenced, that it takes 6 months. So most of our students who meet the October 1 deadline, they find out in April whether or not they've qualified based on their foreign credentials to sit for the bar exam. So if you get it in a little later, if it arrives maybe October 3rd or 4th or 10th or something like that, sometimes they do get to those applicants, but they don't guarantee you. They say, if you get your credentials completed by the October 1 deadline, we will let you know, we promise, yes or no, whether you qualify to take the New York bar exam. So those deadlines are very important. It's also supremely important that you follow their directions to the letter. So if they ask for things in a certain way, you know, these are the laws, so to speak, of qualifying for the New York bar exam. And so you have to do it just like that. So while you're still home in your home country, now is a good time to get those documents ready, right? Because you're going to be very busy starting your LL.M in the United States, and to be able to have to do that by correspondence with your home institution, that would be a challenge, right? So now's a good time to do that. And the other thing that's great about this is that the evaluation of your credentials is free. So if you're considering, like, I don't really know if I really want to take a US bar exam or not, but you have somewhat of an interest, if you took the time to just get this stuff evaluated and submitted by the October 1 deadline for the July bar exam, then you have that there. And once you've qualified, you're qualified for years. So having done that work before having enrolled just gives you options that you can decide, you know, once you're here, do I really want to take those required classes, and do I really want to take a bar exam? So those are my quick notes about that. And if you have anything to add, or yeah, go ahead. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great information. And just 2 things to add, along with, as Liz mentioned, speaking to your advisor about which classes to take, I would just suggest that you also see, and this may be even during your admission process as you're considering schools, who might have, which law school might have some type of bar prep assistance. We have a director of bar pass programs here who works very closely with our international students as well as our US JD students to ensure that those early deadlines are, you know, well known to the students so that they can obtain all those documents that they need. And we do have a bar prep course on campus, as many law schools have. So that's really helpful for students, is to make sure that if they are intending to take a bar exam, they're looking at schools that are going to have that support for them. And the second point I wanted to make is that if students are planning on taking the bar exam, during the admission process, is to also work closely with the school's international office with respect to their visas. And we're going to talk a little bit more about visas, and maybe we're going to cover this there too. But just with respect to the bar exam, as Liz mentioned, they're offered in February. It's offered in February and July, and depending on what visa you're coming in on for your program, I'm not a visa expert, but there are deadlines with respect to your exit out of the country. And if you need to leave within 30 days of the end of your program, and say your program ends in May and the bar exam is not until July, you're going to be outside that 30-day time limit. And so you have to consider whether you're going to travel home and come back and what that looks like, or if you are going to stay in the US, what that looks like and what type of visa you need in order to do that, because depending on the visas, you may need to work, and you probably don't want to work while you're studying for the bar exam. So that's just a second consideration, is during your admission process, is to make sure you're on the right visa if you're planning to take the bar exam?
Most of our students are on F1 visas. A few of them are on J1 visas. And if they graduate in May, then often to get through to the end of July when the bar exam is, they apply for what's called OPT, which is something we won't really get into. And you don't really need to know a lot about that right now. What you really need to know about is how to get your credentials assembled so you have these options open.
Yes.
But the OPT does give you an opportunity to stay through a bar exam and possibly even a February bar exam. And yeah, definitely we offer online and in-person tutoring at the law school over the summer. That's part of the services that we offer students. And we also give students a remuneration towards if they take a certain number of classes that are bar tested, then they get a scholarship towards the bar prep sources out there that are purchased to help you prepare for a bar exam. So
Great.
Michelle?
So what stands out to me, 6 months. It could be a 6-month process. So, yep. So that leads us into the next question about beginning the visa process. So again, Liz, if you want to kick us off with this discussion of, when does this begin and how long is this process?
Right. Yeah, so it was mentioned before that, you have to pay a deposit, and at our school too, that deposit is credited towards your first semester tuition. So once we know that you are going to enroll by filling out our enrollment form and by submitting what for us is a $500 deposit, then as was mentioned before, we tell you how to get your network ID and your passphrase. And because that is the way to get your emails, you'll start shifting from your personal email to your university email. I think that's probably true at a lot of law schools. And all future correspondence about your I-20, which is the document that you use to apply for a visa, are going to go to your school email. And first step is getting that email set up, getting your network ID and passphrase set up, logging into university email, and then we send you to our website where you apply for an I-20 and or a DS-219 for a J1 visa, which are the most common. And so generally for that, you just need to answer the questions that the university requires. Our university requires you to upload the admit letter. If there's any scholarship involved, that needs to be documented as well. And then you need to supply a statement of financial support. And that demonstrates that you have a year's worth of tuition and living expenses that would cover you for a year. And it just so happens that's true for any program of study, but our LL.M program is generally 2 semesters, or an academic year. So of course, what you have to demonstrate might be reduced by the scholarship, but generally the I-20 is the tuition that you're going to owe for the year, 2 semesters, including estimated living expenses. So each university will provide you with their estimated living expenses based on where they are in the country and housing costs and that kind of thing in the area. So then you get a bank statement to that effect. It could be in your name, it could be in a family member's name. And then our university would just require that if it's in perhaps your parents' name, that the parents sign off and say, yes, this bank account will be used to pay for tuition and living expenses. So when all those documents are uploaded, our international office, it's not us here in the law school, but our international office does the review, and it takes about 2 weeks at least. And sometimes it's less. They're doing a great job, but it can take at least 2 weeks. So that's very important. Just kind of like we said about submitting your credentials for the bar exam to think ahead and get this done, because as you know, at once, so there's the 2 weeks that just after you've completed the I-20 to get the I-20, and then it's an electronic document that you print and then you sign, and then you get your SEVIS ID, SEVIS, and then you use your I-20 and your SEVIS ID to apply for an appointment at a U.S. consulate to get a visa. And then that has its own, calendar and to get an appointment, and then to get the visa and that kind of thing. So you want to leave plenty of time to get the best airfares and to get to school in time for orientation. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get this done so that you're here for orientation. So that's just a bit about that process, and I'd welcome input from my fellow panelists.
Yeah, I think we have the exact same process, very similar, and the same with your law school. We go through our international office for the visas, and they're available to assist the students as they are at your law school as well, with any questions about the visa process and making sure that they're on the right visa for their academic goals, for the reason why they're coming. And yeah, the process and looking into visa wait times for, depending on the country, to see how long it might take for this student to get an appointment at their country and how long that may take, and then making their travel arrangements. So
right. So when you come into the United States, you need your I-20 and your visa. And your visa, your I-20 lasts as long as you graduate. Generally, the I-20 expires the day that you think that you're going to graduate. And then the visa, of course, could be whatever's issued at that time from that country. And it could be that you already have a visa. Maybe you've already studied in the United States before, and that visa is still good. It's not school specific, but the I-20 is program specific to the particular program that you're going to enroll in, and school specific. So, and that's the document that really defines for you how long you can stay in the United States.
Great, thank you. Let's go into applying for housing. Pam, how is the law school involved? And feel free for both Pam and Liz, what you guys do at your law school, that process in regards to applying for housing.
Sure. So our campus housing department will take the reservation form from the student if they're interested in housing. And then the student will receive a confirmation letter from that department that they have secured a room for them. We do have 142 rooms on campus and 23 townhouse apartments on campus. They're fully furnished. They have the dorm rooms are single occupancy. They have refrigerators and microwaves, and then each wing has a shared kitchen and bathrooms. And I think it's great because the international students are living with the U.S. students, and everyone can really thrive together. They can study together. They can enjoy leisure activities together, cooking together, and spending time on weekends and when they're not studying to get to know each other and enjoy friendships and essentially colleagues from around the world, right? After they're done and they've graduated, and they now have these legal contacts around the globe. So I think it's a really great experience. So once they've received that reservation form and that their room is confirmed, they will get a lease from the housing department with the rules, what's required on campus, and the terms of the lease, how long it's going to last. The rules of conduct for behavior on campus, what's allowed, what's not allowed. We actually have a separate building that has a wellness wing. So for any students who maybe they value not having any alcoholic beverages around them, or just want to practice more of a quiet, healthy lifestyle, they can request to be in the wellness wing. So that is part of the reservation request as well. And then depending on when the students are arriving, we have 24/7 campus safety officers here. So even if a flight arrives at 1 in the morning, they can go to straight to the campus safety office, and they will have the keys so that the students can arrive in their room. I will say that the rooms don't have bedding, they don't have the sheets. So we do partner with a company that so that the students can order that ahead of time. And as long as it's delivered before the student is here, we will make sure that that gets put in the student's room for them, so that if they are arriving at 1 a.m, they will at least have a pillow to sleep on that night and have everything that they need to get comfortable pretty quickly. We are within walking distance to restaurants and a mall and a supermarket, so there's a lot of convenience for students as well. And we like to welcome them to campus as well. So there's always a welcome package in their rooms for them, so that when they're arriving, if they're a little hungry, thirsty, there's some waters and snacks and Widener swag and things like that for them. So, but that's our process for their campus housing. And I'll turn it over to Liz.
Yeah, so we have summer housing that's open for temporary residents. So some of our students actually come to our summer program before the LL.M. It's a 3-week program that just introduces students to common law and reading and analyzing case law. But students can stay in the residence halls through the beginning of August. And they can use that time to look for apartments. We don't have on-campus housing for any graduate student in any program of study at Case Western Reserve, but our office provides a list of housing resources that I send to students as soon as they're admitted, websites to apartment buildings nearby within walking distance, Cleveland and University transportation around campus, so that helps them find apartments. And if they need some time, a week or so, to look at what's available, they'll stay in the residence halls to do that. Yeah, so we also have students who will pick you up at the airport. So current students do that. That's another way just to get familiar with what's available for housing.
Great. Okay, so course registration, as everybody gets excited about signing up for courses. So Pam, when does this typically take place during time frame wise?
Yes, we usually register students about at least about 6 weeks before the semester starts, 6 to 8 weeks prior to the semester starting. And we will do individualized advising with each student. Before their arrival, we'll Zoom with them and we'll look at the course schedule. We'll look at which program they're in and which courses are required for their program, what's being offered, and then which programs have electives, and maybe look through the course schedule and see based on their interests and what's available and what we, based on our advising, would be a good course for the students to take. Through that process too, we're familiar with some of the professors that are that teach more often to our international students, and so we may use that to kind of guide which section of the course the students are going to be put into, because we may have faculty that are doing research in different global areas, and maybe we have a student who is looking to research in a particular legal specialty, and they're more comfortable, they're already in this class, and they may be more comfortable to approach this faculty member and see if they can do some research with them as well while they're here. And that way we can just kind of speak with the student one-on-one, gauge what their academic goals are, and that way we can map out their curriculum based on those goals.
Okay, Liz, any follow-up?
Yeah, we do our course registration during the summer program that I mentioned in July, or we do it during orientation. And also it's like Pam was saying, it does require some consultation. I mean, we do need to spend time telling you, what your choices are, and what the degree requirements are. And that's one of the great things about a US LL.M. program or US higher education in general. You have a lot of choices. So that's great, but it can be intimidating at first. So we do like to have these discussions with students. We do them in person during orientation, but we do have an online orientation. And I would just put that out there, that's a really great thing to attend,
Mhm.
whether it's these, what Pam says, these sessions to sign up for classes, just to be able to touch base with your LLM program ahead of time and make sure that you have all the information that you need.
Right. And then just two other questions that we're going to follow up now on were questions that both Liz and Pamela have said they've gotten during the process. And the first one is in regards to just the general question of vaccination. So for those coming to the U.S. For a program, vaccination requirements. Liz, do you want to touch on this?
Sure. Case Western Reserve does not have any vaccination requirements, but that's something that you need to check with each university about. The university our school does offer different kinds of vaccinations, and students can take advantage of them if they want to for COVID or HPV or whatever it may be. But that's one less thing that you have to take care of before you come here to study.
Pamela, did you have any follow-up?
Yes, just Widener does have some vaccination requirements. We don't have many. We don't require a COVID vaccine anymore at this point, but we do have 3 other. Well, one's just a blood test, and the other 2 are vaccines.
And then the other question was in regards to healthcare insurance. So Pam, you mentioned that's a question that you get often from students.
Yes. So for Widener, anyway, for Delaware Law School, we have a requirement for students, for international students, to obtain the university health insurance. And we do get asked a lot if I already have health insurance in my country or I have travel health insurance, will that be sufficient? And at least here at our law school, it is required to have the university health insurance, but it is usually more comprehensive coverage than what they may obtain through the travel insurance. So we do think it is beneficial for them to have that.
Yeah, we do spend time explaining to students how essential insurance is when you're in the United States. It's impossibly expensive without insurance. So you have to prove that you have insurance. We recommend the university's insurance. It's not required, but I can give you other sources of insurance if you want to shop around. Yeah, that's something that you want to make sure you take care of within the first week or 2, or as soon as the university tells you to, when you get to the United States.
All right. And then just have a couple of other questions that were kind of through some of the chat earlier for the 3 sessions that I somewhat saved for here if we can just go through. So one of the questions that I don't recall that anybody really answered, but a question that was asked was, can I practice law as an in-house lawyer without the bar exam and just the LLM degree? Do either of you want to answer that question?
You can get jobs as like a legal assistant or a paralegal, and those are often good job opportunities if you've gotten an LLM and you want to work and get some work experience in the United States. But you cannot work as a lawyer without passing a U.S. bar exam. They're all state-based. And Ohio, for instance, where we're located, has its own bar exam, and it is open to LLMs as well. I talked about New York, but there are other options, and yeah, it's required.
Okay. Pamela, anything?
I agree completely.
Okay. Okay. And then another question was, are there LLM scholarships available and how to research, whether it's by a particular school or just in general? Any advice either of you have for that question?
I think it's probably by school. I don't think there's a database of, the only other thing I can think of is there are some portals out there that help students find LLMs. And sometimes those portals from, third-party vendors will list universities and whether they have scholarships. So that would be my only other advice.
There are just thinking about ways that you can research in addition to any scholarships that the university or the law school might offer would be there are these Education USA centers that advise international students around the world about opportunities at US universities, and they might know of some country-specific sources for scholarships. And we do list on our website for our LLM program some other outside organizations, but all of those things, require advance inquiry and application, and it's not easy to get financial aid at any of those sources, but there are out there, and it is worth inquiring. Yeah.
Okay. And then one last question that came through. It was touched on briefly about online programs in the earlier session. And I think, Pam, you might be able to answer with online. What are maybe some of the differences in the process of, you've been admitted now, of an online program versus a person that's going to come over to the US to do the program in person?
Sure. Well, the application deadlines are usually a lot shorter because we don't have to go through the wait of the travel documents. So you can usually wait until, it depends on the school, but sometimes you can apply as, late as 4 weeks before the start of a semester for an online program. We don't have to wait for travel documents. We have an online orientation, and you don't have the expense of housing and health insurance and travel and food in the US. So, you have 24-hour access to your course. You do have live Zoom access. It may not be at a particularly scheduled time, but you can always schedule one-on-one meetings with the instructors. They may be pre-recorded lectures, but then there may be times offered throughout the semester when you can meet live, and depending on the different time zones, try to personalize that based on the countries where the students are from.
But process could be similar with how you're working with the law student and choosing the courses.
Absolutely.
That would be a similar process than if you were coming in person.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, you would want to meet and have a Zoom or a call and select which courses meet their curriculum path and their goals. Yes, absolutely.
For online LLMs, you just inquire with your school about, which programs or which bar exams you may or may not be qualified for if you're an online student.
Definitely.
Perfect. Well, I just wanted to open up now for either of you, if you both want to, any just closing thoughts overall on this topic, or just overall on choosing a program that each of you have. Liz or Pam, whichever one.
Feel free to go first, Liz, if you like.
For choosing a program, it's kind of this is the week or the couple weeks where we have a lot of students making up their final decisions. We have generally a May 1 deadline to indicate whether or not you're going to enroll. And don't hesitate to get to know people like me and Pam. So we're here to help. A lot of times international students feel apologetic for asking questions until they get here and get to know us and know it's fine. But it's very important to get the information that you need. I can talk in detail about classes. I can introduce you to current students. Sometimes I can even introduce you to alumni in those countries. So get the information that you need to make a good decision about which LLM program you want to choose.
And with respect to which program to choose, we've talked a lot about taking a bar exam, but not everyone wants to take a bar exam. So I think also taking a close look at what kind of legal specialty area you might be interested in. So there are so many LLM specialty areas, everything from fashion law to, taxation or, global privacy rights and human dignity, human rights and dignity law. And of course, being in Delaware, we have corporate law. So I think as you're looking at these different programs that you're interested in, you may just want to have the experience of a short-term program in the United States, specializing in a particular legal field, and then take that home and use that to advance your career back home. And I second what Liz said. I was going to say the same thing about not being shy to reach out. I think Zooming with the school that you're either interested in attending or planning to attend, and look, you're going to have a familiar face when you arrive here, right? You're going to see someone and say, I know them because I've already seen them on the screen a few times. And I think chatting with alumni or current students is a fantastic way to get the perspective. Look, we're here, we're working here, but to get the perspective of students that are here, what it's like to be on campus, what it's like to do things outside of campus together. What's nearby? I'm in Delaware. What am I near, right? How easy is it for me to get to Philadelphia? It's very easy, 30 minutes. But, where am I? And same thing for Ohio. What can I get to that's really close by, that's cool to see? Let me talk to some of the students and see what they're doing, to see what my non-academic life, my downtime is going to be like while I'm there too. So,
yeah, good point. Well, thank you both for joining for this session. And we'll close it out now. I just wanted to thank again Joshua Alter for moderating the first two panels, and to all of our law school sponsors for participating in this LL.M virtual event. Thank all of you who joined today. We hope it was insightful for you in making decisions about applying to law school in the U.S.